Good evening. Justice Minister Rimsky-Yoon has given the clearest indication yet that the government will not introduce national security legislation for the rest of its current term. That means the highly controversial matter will be left for the next administration, Joyce Wu reports.
Last year's civil disobedience movement has reignited the debate over the need for national security laws for Hong Kong. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying himself has raised the issue, saying foreign interference and young people talking about independence will have implications on a national level, although he's ruled out such legislation for now. Justice Secretary Rimsky-Yoon went a step further, indicating to ATV's Newsline that the government is likely to leave the matter alone for the rest of this term, which expires in 2017.
I think at the moment, to be very honest, I think our plate is very full. Our top priority now is the constitutional development. And on top of that, of course, we will not and we cannot ignore other issues concerning people's livelihood.
But Yoon also made it clear that Hong Kong will eventually have to get round to it, as Article 23 of the Basic Law makes it necessary for the SAR to have its own legislation against acts of treason, secession, sedition and subversion against the central government.
For the time being, I think it may not be the best time to move forward to enact Article 23, although I would stress that it is something which Hong Kong has a constitutional responsibility to do so. It's just a question of when we can have the appropriate political environment and the resources to handle the situation.
You can watch the full Newsline interview tomorrow night at 8 here on ATV World.
Members of the public were invited to a special LegCo hearing today to talk about political reform. Many of the opinions were from people who appeared to support Beijing's reforms. Raymond Yeung reports.
It's been more than 3 weeks since the government launched a second consultation on political reform, but Hong Kongers have not had a chance to meet top officials face to face. That is until today, when Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Under-Secretary Lau Kong-wah showed up at LegCo for a public hearing. Over 150 individuals and groups were given 3 minutes each to express their views on the matter. Most were said to be from pro-Beijing groups. If political reform fails, then Hong Kong's 5 million eligible voters will be stripped of their right to choose their chief executive in 2017, this man said. Another urged lawmakers to fulfill their historic mission and pass the final reform package the government will table to LegCo. But there were also fierce government critics, such as this woman, who mocked Beijing's claim that the chief executive election is a matter of national security. Don't tell me about national security when food safety on the mainland is still not properly regulated, she said. Education sector lawmaker Ip Kin Yoon, one of the few pan-democrats attending the meeting, asked if people had arguments other than saying there will be no end to the political bickering unless the reforms are passed. A taxi driver replied by likening Beijing's framework to traffic lights, saying things will go smoothly if drivers obey the signs. Lau stuck to the government's usual rhetoric when responding to people's comments. He insisted a one-man, one-vote system to pick the chief executive is better than restricting the election to a 1,200-member committee, and said all Hong Kongers want universal suffrage in 2017. The pan-democrats have vowed to boycott the government's final reform blueprint, unless Beijing scraps restrictions they believe are unfair, something their opponents believe is impossible. On the radio program this morning, veteran unionist Wong Kwok Kin said there are growing calls in society to accept the reform plan. But Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau said Beijing has compromised in the past, so can change its mind.
Thousands of people are expected to join a pro-democracy march from Causeway Bay to Central tomorrow afternoon. It's believed about 2,000 police officers will be deployed to monitor the rally from Victoria Park to Chater Road. Protest organiser Johnson Young from the Civil Human Rights Front hasn't ruled out the possibility of some sort of occupation or sit-in by demonstrators after the rally. Police say they will not stop the march, even if the group fails to recruit enough marshals required to maintain order among the protesters. Health Chief Ko Wing-man has warned of an extended flu season this year. However, he ruled out ordering all Hong Kongers to wear masks on the streets. Here's Raymond Yeung.
With the flu situation seemingly out of hand, more people are wearing masks on the streets. Health Secretary Ko Wing-man has dismissed calls for everyone to wear face masks, but admitted the flu season could get worse.
We do not see a clear peak or plateauing effect within these few days, and therefore we can only expect the plateau to be in February or even March. So the whole epidemic might last longer, and more patients will suffer from severe illness.
He urged anyone with flu-like symptoms to get help immediately for more effective treatment.
There is a trend for people to avoid consulting doctor on the last day of the Lunar New Year and on the first day. So I think this is just not going to do anything good.
The epidemic's death toll in January has now reached 81, compared to 149 from all of last year. The health chief said a vaccine for mutated H3N2 flu strain will only arrive in March or April.
Labour Chief Matthew Cheung has urged the ATV to pay all salaries owed to staff by the Lunar New Year, criticising the company for failing to settle all of December's outstanding payments. Edna Dare reports.
ATV has paid 80% of staff their December wages, issuing checks to those who make less than $22,000 a month. ATV Executive Director Ip Kai Po explained that the money came from advertising, production and copyright income, and checks were used to minimize bank transfer delays. He expects remaining staff will get their December wages by next week. It's not clear when January wages will be paid or if it will be before the Lunar New Year period next month. But Ip said several buyers have expressed interest in farmland owned by the station, as well as some copyrights. If the deals are made, it will be very fruitful, he said.
Chinese Lunar New Year is very important to all the cottages and all the employees. I hope that we can pay as soon as possible. And we have different methods to get the money. And I hope that all these methods can be completed and can be succeeded to get all the money.
Labour Minister Matthew Cheung is piling pressure on the company to have it all sorted out by the holiday season. Cheung said it is absolutely unacceptable that only some staff were paid their December salaries. He urged the station to make it the top priority to settle all outstanding payments using every cent it earns. He said the Labour Department is taking tough legal action against ATV, and those in charge face plenty of questions.
Overseas, more than 100 cases of measles have now been reported in the US in an outbreak blamed on an anti-vaccine movement. But first, India has successfully test-fired a rocket capable of carrying nuclear bombs to Beijing and Europe. Arthur Okiola reports.
New Delhi has successfully carried out a third trial of a missile capable of being armed with nuclear warheads. Footage released today showed the Agni V rocket, which has a range of 5,000 kilometers, launched from an island off Odisha. The three-stage missile can travel faster than a bullet and carry a 1,000-kilo nuclear weapon, but it can only be fired on orders from Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The successful test means India is closer to being able to launch nuclear weapons that can reach Beijing and Eastern Europe.
Alrighty.
Health officials in the U.S. are blaming a rise in the number of measles infections there on an anti-vaccination movement. The U.S. was declared measles-free in 2000, with the only infections linked to imported cases.
What's happened now is because there are increasing number of people who are declining vaccination, herd immunity has dropped off. The number of people who are protected against measles is not close to the 95% we need for full protection of a community.
The number of cases hit its highest in 2 decades last year, and the Centers for Disease Control is urging people to get vaccinated following an outbreak last month at Disneyland in California that infected more than 50 people. People avoid vaccinations for religious or safety reasons. U.S. rap mogul Suge Knight has been arrested on suspicion of running 2 people over outside a Los Angeles fast food restaurant, killing one of them. The 49-year-old co-founder of Death Row Records reported to police where he apparently gave a statement that didn't match witness accounts. The incident happened after Knight pulled up to the restaurant in a truck and started arguing with one of the men, leading to punches being thrown through the car window.
Mr. Knight puts his truck in reverse, backs up, and then puts his truck into drive, and then drives forward. But as he backs up, he ends up knocking the victim down to the ground. Once he backs up, he puts it in drive, runs him over, and then runs over another individual who's in a parking lot and keeps on going.
Knight could be in court on Monday, according to the city's district attorney's office. He's being held with bail set at $2 million. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
Sports news starting with tennis. Serena Williams have won her 6th Australian Open crown in Melbourne. The world #1 beat Maria Sharapova 6-3, 7-6 to clinch her 19th Grand Slam title. The Russian has now lost 16 times in a row to Williams since 2004. Tiger Woods has hit a career low, carding his worst round in his professional career and failing to make the cut at the Phoenix Open. It was a wet and windy day at TPC Scottsdale in Arizona, and not a good day for former world #1 Tiger Woods.